fly ball into right field. She is gone. In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened. This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the roof. Goodbye, home. Don Mattingly. Tucker waits one. Deep left field. Down the line. That ball is out of here. Out of here. He's gone. And the
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tablesetters covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve, joined with my tag team partner, Devin. What's going on, man?
What's up? Welcome to the show, everybody. Glad to have you as always. Steve and I are coming at you here on a Wednesday night. Still hyped up, both of us, by our Knicks and one of the best comebacks you'll ever see in a Eastern Conference final game last night. And sitting here right now as we are ready to talk some baseball with some Yankees, Blue Jays, a fantastic young pitching matchup in the background here, a rain-delayed game, so just in the top of the second inning. But ready to talk some baseball as always, coming at you, table setters. Let's go.
Of course, and as you said, a 22-point comeback from those New York Knickerbockers and Jalen Brunson leading the charge. And, man, it was an unbelievable night in New York, and I know the tickets are expensive, and it seems like the Knicks are at an all-time high, and can't imagine what the tickets will cost at MSG if the finals do indeed wind up there. But it's been electric over here, and New York has been a buzz with the New York Knicks. And I saw this Instagram post talking about the insanity that is the Knicks fan base, and they had a Venn diagram combining all the madness of all New York fan bases, and we're so spread apart. You know, the Yankees and the Mets, of course, we just got off the Subway Series, but it's usually the Islanders and the Rangers, Giants, Jets, you guys name it. But for the Knicks, it feels like everyone is galvanized by this one team, and the insanity that comes out of the New York fan base is just, it's on full display with the New York Knicks.
For sure. And just an electric atmosphere there at Madison Square Garden. But a good time of the year for sports in general. I took in some Mets Yankees at Citi Field on Saturday. I got to see you in passing very quickly at the Bohemian Beer Garden as you were about to ring announce a show there, a wrestling show there. And then we hopped over to Citi Field afterwards and took the game in. My Metsies were able to get that one. And then the day after, unbelievable finish, obviously, for the Mets. Not so great for the Yanks with the Tyrone Taylor home run. Mets had some momentum there, and now they've dropped the last two to the Nationals. We're going to talk about the Nationals tonight because here's the thing, like losing a couple to the Nationals this year might not be as ugly as you would think from years past because they're actually playing some decent baseball. We're going to talk about their offense later tonight.
Of course, and all the talk about the Subway Series. And before we move on from it, there's been a lot of debate across New York and just about what the Subway Series means. When you were there in person, did it feel like just another game, or did you feel the buzz that the Subway Series are supposed to have?
I definitely still felt the buzz. It was a great night for a game. Got a little cold there at the end, a little windy, but a good mix of Mets and Yankees fans. I said to the people I was with, like, I was very happy with where we sat as far as, like, I've been to Mets Yankee games before, and there's been a couple games where some of the people around us are just way too rowdy, have had way too many drinks before the game, and they can kind of ruin it for, like, anyone in that section. The section I happened to be in was very respectful, very split between Mets Yankee fans, like calm, but at the same time very into it, but like not vicious at each other, like respectful to each other. So I like that friendly rivalry is nice. I think the Subway Series definitely means something still. It would mean a little bit more if the Mets were an above 500 team as the Yankees are. And we know the Yankees are trying to get some wins against above 500 teams, but still, no, I think it still has some meaning for sure.
Yeah, I'm definitely leaning one foot in each camp. I can see the case for a lot of people out there that are saying it doesn't mean as it used to. And of course, with the fact that it happens as often as it does, and maybe it will mean a little bit more when we have the realignment and you add some expansion teams, and the Yankees and the Mets are now residing in the same division. We saw some concepts with that, so we'll revisit that in the future. But we'll get into our opening say here. But before we get there, at Tablesetters Pod, you can find us on IG and on X. Devin run the X machine over there. We're trying to get to 6,000 followers over there. If you guys are looking for some MLB notables, every single day, Devin put in some hard work for some great posts on X, giving you guys the daily lineups and really what is the matchups to be watching, pitching, hitter wise, the trends, all that stuff. So make sure you guys check that out over there.
Yeah, happy to do it. Happy for the support. Thank you guys for tuning into that and tuning into the show. Like Steve said, leave us a review, subscribe where you can. We're happy to have you here. Hopefully you keep on coming back.
So let's get into our opening say and talk about all the news around baseball.
The opening say.
All right, so first and foremost, we want to thank our good friend Matt for coming through with the drops. You'll hear them all sprinkled out through the night with all our different segments, giving us some clean overlay of giving us nice segments, and Matt doing all that stuff for the Extra Cooler Show. He's well known for the sound, so we appreciate you, Matt, greatly for putting in the work and really expediting that overnight. So, and he made some changes for us, so he has the format. So if we want to add some new organ sounds to our show, he will be able to provide that in spades. But thank you so much for Matt for doing that.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. I mean, we've appreciated him just listening to the show. The fact that he's actually helping us out on the audio side now a little bit. We appreciate that for sure. And it makes the show sound a little more crisp for sure.
So we're looking at for the opening say, and originally on the rundown, peek behind the curtain was Jacob Misiorowski and the stuff we're seeing from him and the electricity. And we will discuss him during this segment. And Devin said, why don't we combine into what's becoming a very captivating, if not fascinating, 2026 NL Cy Young race as we're looking at it. And I think the interesting part about this race, we'll mention the guys by name. There's not one correct statistical profile right now of who potentially could be the favorite. Let's start with Jacob Misiorowski right now. I think visually he's producing one of the more overwhelming seasons. If you're watching him on a weekly basis when he pitches every 5 days, Devin, it's the combination of velocity, the strikeouts, the contact suppression. It's really unlike anything we've seen in modern baseball. And we're going to kind of get to another guy who's breaking that trend as well. The raw numbers are absurd. A 1.89 ERA, MLB leading 88 strikeouts, 13.895 strikeouts per nine, 160 batting average against, a whip that is a 0.88, and only around 5 hits per inning. And then you layer in like some of that historical stuff we keep seeing on the broadcast when you watch him pitch. He became the first pitcher in MLB history to record 5 straight starts with at least 8 strikeouts while allowing no extra base hits in the modern era with a 4-stretch of 30-plus strikeouts, 0 runs allowed, and 0 extra base hits allowed. So we can also talk about the 143 pitches at 100 miles per hour hard over his last 4 starts, while other MLB starter combined through 144 all season. So again, I want to put that math out there. He himself has thrown 143 pitches at 100 miles per hour or more, while the rest of Major League Baseball and the starters out there are looking at 144 combined. I mean, since pitch tracking began back in 2008, only Hunter Green has more strikeouts on pitches thrown 100 plus miles per hour as a starter. Green has 96, and Misiorowski already has 58. So I'll let you speak to him a little bit because the profile is just overpowering right now. What we saw against the Cubs, that is on Front Street. You can talk about the rivalry between them. He's going to be a nightmare for them going forward. But for Jacob Misiorowski, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you?
Oh, just nasty, dude. Like, how uncomfortable you have to be in the box. When he releases the ball, it basically it's got to feel like it's right on you the second it comes out of his hand. It just has to be super uncomfortable there. You referenced his last 4 starts. Like, that's the amazing thing. He's been good all season, but it seems like he's actually getting better. Like every start out there. In his last 4 starts, he's combined for 24 and a third innings pitch. Like you said, no runs. So 0 ERA over those 4 starts, 0.58 whip, 5.8% walk rate, 42.5% K rate. And that's the thing. Like, we're going to talk about him here first, but then we're going to also talk about all the other guys that are in the mix for this NL Cy Young race. That's, it's early, but well, I guess we said we can't say it's early anymore. But for award season, it feels early to talk about it. But it's a fascinating group, like you said. But he has just been dominant. He's got 2 top 5 stuff plus pitches. The fastball and the curveball are both top 5 stuff plus individual pitches. Like, it's hard enough to get one in the top 20 with all the nasty stuff that's out there. He has 2 top 5. So it's pretty incredible. And it should be mentioned, like, this hot streak by Misiorowski has coincided with the Brewers just recently passing the Cubs. And when you look at those 2 teams, it's pretty clear what the difference is. Like, the Brewers are pretty much who we thought they'd be offensively, right? They just know who they are. They know how to get it done. Bryce Terang having a really great season again, kind of proving the doubters wrong. But it's the pitching. The Cubs have gotten hurt, literally and figuratively, on the pitching side of things, dealt with a lot of injuries, and it's kind of showing itself now. I feel like they were able to sustain it a little bit at first, and now it's kind of rearing its ugly head. Whereas the Brewers, we know what Misiorowski's been doing. Kyle Harrison has been fantastic. He's out there tonight against the Cubs. Last time I checked, he had 10 strikeouts, no earned runs. So he's another story of a guy that, former top prospect of the Giants, and then he went to the Red Sox and the Brewers. Leave it to the Brewers to get the most out of the guy, where the other two teams felt like they couldn't find it. They couldn't get it out of him. But yeah, I think that's worth mentioning too. Like Misiorowski's unbelievable pitching has coincided with the Brewers passing the Cubs for first place in the NL Central. And that's as important as anything.
Yeah, we'll be talking about the Miz all year, and he'll definitely be in the running for this NL Cy Young, as we mentioned. But the other guy we want to mention is Cristopher Sánchez. He's building arguably the most complete starting pitcher resume in the league right now. He leads the NL in ERA with a 1.82, pitching WAR with 2.9, innings pitched 64.1, batters faced 268. And unlike Jacob Misiorowski, of course, you can talk about the overpowering stuff. You look at Cristopher Sánchez, and I was texting you earlier today. It's really just about the consistency we're seeing him. We have a larger sample size, of course, to talk about him because we've seen him grow over the course of 2023 to 2026. I think that's what makes him so compelling, because every major indicator keeps moving upward for him, and they're all improving at the same time, whether it's the K rate, whether it's the FIP, whether it's the Sierra. In a 3-year window, he is improving and doing things a little bit better every single year. And to me, it's showing a guy who's working hard to become a better pitcher and not just relying on the fact of the raw stuff. And I think that does matter in Major League Baseball, because those metrics are specifically designed to remove the stuff from the background and the luck that we put into pitcher evaluation. For Chris Sanchez, it's clear he can do this on a regular basis. You know what you're getting from him, and that's so valuable to the Phillies on a 5-day basis. He is simply just right now riding sequences of being able to just kind of go out there. As I said, he's becoming a better pitcher every single year. And the adjustments for me watching him, he's not just reinventing himself physically, he's optimizing how he's attacking hitters. You can kind of see the game plan that he feels like he's smarter than the other guy. He's increasing the sinker usage against lefties while leaning heavily on the changeup against righties. And you're looking at the results showing up directly in the splits versus lefties in 2026. You can look at the FIP numbers. Versus righties is kind of equal on both sides. So he understands how to maximize his arsenal, which almost lends itself to believe as the stuff kind of trails in the direction of as he gets older, maybe he's going to become a better pitcher.
He does. He is one of those unique pitchers who has that profile of someone that, like, age is not necessarily going to diminish him as it does some of the guys that are, throwing as hard as they can. The lefty changeup dominance makes me think of like a Johan Santana in his prime, like not the exact same pitcher by any means, but just the lefty with the dominant changeup. You can't help but think about that. He mentioning the changeup. I mentioned Miz before. He has 2 top 5 stuff plus pitches. Sanchez's changeup is also a top 5 stuff plus pitch. So nasty stuff there. Like you mentioned, like the improvement. He's increased his chase percentage this year by almost 5%. Batters chasing more. That's a big deal. Increased his first strike percentage, so getting strike one, right? That getting ahead of hitters, and increased his strikeout percentage. So those are great things to see if you're a Phillies fan. 2.5 F WAR is first in the NL in pitcher WAR. So, I mean, he's right up there with Misiorowski and some other guys. And for the Phillies, I mean, you have him looking like this. You have Zach Wheeler back looking like Zach Wheeler. Kyle Schwarber's been out for a few days now with some illness that they're really not giving much information on, but a lot of good things going on in Philly that you have to feel like, listen, there's only a couple teams in the NL that look like legitimate playoff teams right now. If you're a Phillies fan, despite the terrible start, you have to feel pretty good about them at the end of the season being a postseason team. And once they get there, what team wants to face Cristopher Sánchez in game 1 and Zach Wheeler in game 2? And Jesus Luzardo, we all know the dude is a little unpredictable, but when he's on, he's one of the nastier pitchers in the league as well. So they're in a good spot. And these 2 names, Jacob Misiorowski, Cristopher Sánchez, they're certainly towards the top of the National League Cy Young mix, but they are not alone. I saw Buster Olney tweet either today or yesterday that, in his opinion, this is as of now, the most fun Cy Young race and maybe one of the best Cy Young races we will ever see in the history of baseball. We're talking the 2 guys we just mentioned in addition to Shohei Ohtani, who's on the mound tonight against the rival Padres. Paul Skenes, obviously. Chris Sale, another great outing for him tonight. 7 innings, 1 run, right? He's just quality start after quality start. Probably have to throw Mason Miller in there. I know the Dodgers got to him a little bit because of that great Andy Pajes at bat last night. And one name that's probably not getting enough respect right now, Chase Burns. This dude is opening eyes. We all knew he was nasty, but I think a lot of people would say, like, listen, he's going to strike out a lot of guys. The control might be, come and go, maybe a little rough around the edges. And maybe like in a year or two, we'll be thinking of him as like a top 5, top 10 pitcher. He's trying to make that timeline go a little quicker. So I think all those guys I just mentioned are absolutely in the discussion right now. And honestly, I want to do a little take your pick. Like, if it's you, who you have that vote for the Cy Young, who are you voting for if it was today out of all those guys I just mentioned?
It's very tough, but I'm probably going Chris Sanchez for the things I was talking about, just the more complete profile of a pitcher.
Yeah.
But I mean, you cannot bet against a full season of any of these guys. The Paul Skenes piece of this, you take that first start against the Mets at Citi Field, where the Mets got to him, and what he has done since to kind of rewrite the ship after his ERA ballooned to a high number, and then kind of getting back to a spot where he's the Paul Skenes we've been used to. And there's historical significance to this. I was mentioning Misiorowski and the stats for that. For Paul Skenes, I understand everyone understands how good he's been, but just put it in context. Since he allowed the 5 earned runs in his first inning of the season, as we mentioned before, he has a 1.09 ERA, and then adding into potentially becoming the first pitcher since Grover Cleveland Alexander from 1915 to 17 to post a sub-2 ERA in 3 consecutive seasons. So this is not stuff that happens on a regular basis. So I want to put some love on that as well. I keep having this thing ring in my head, though, Devin, with Shohei Ohtani. You said it a couple weeks ago. You said, I think, at our fantasy baseball draft, it feels like there was a indicator in his mind where he wants a Cy Young award on his mantle. Yeah. And that's what we're seeing right now. He hit a home run today. So he's like, he could still hit, but it feels like the onus is on, like, let's make the case that I'm going to win a Cy Young. And you can't forget, I understand that there's no bias. It's supposed to be an objective piece here. But if Ohtani is close in this algorithm of the race and figure it out, he's going to get the votes. You know what I mean? Because of the fact that he's doing both. And even though they say it's not supposed to be considered, he's going to get more votes because of the fact of him doing what he's doing and being able to be such a prolific offensive player at the same time. And, right now he leads all National League players in overall at 3.4 and throwing 101 miles per hour. Like, you have to keep that in consideration. It's going to be fascinating to watch. Mason Miller as well. I know you mentioned the Dodgers got to him as well, but you can't forget the 20 games that he, finished 40 strikeouts against 72 hitters and the 84 strikeout, 9-hit stretch since September 1st, including the postseason World Baseball Classic. It's the nastiest inning in baseball history that people are discussing, and for good reason. Mason Miller is looking to do Eric Gagne things, and we'll see if he can do it. But this is going to be amazing to watch over the course of the next couple of months.
Yeah, I just hope all these guys stay healthy, and I hope they continue to dominate, because it makes for great conversation. When you have a baseball podcast, that's what you want. And the vote will be so interesting if they all just keep on trending this way. More than likely you have a group of 6 or 7 guys, I think we named. A couple of them are probably going to have some hiccups here, but it's, I don't know, man, pretty damn good. And just to go back to Skenes, he did have his last start actually against Philly. He finally looked a little more human. They scored 5 earned runs against him in 5 innings. So his ERA did go back up to 2.62, but don't be shocked if that number is below 2 again at some point down the road. So I guess the NL East is the only one giving him an issue so far. But just to touch upon Ohtani, I do agree. Is that sparkling ERA 0.82 coming into tonight's start. We'll have to check as the show goes on how he's doing against the Padres. But I think the knock on him as of now would be that his innings total is significantly lower than the others because of the 6-man rotation. He doesn't seem to be out there quite as often. Technically, even like if you go to Fangraphs and look at qualified pitchers on the leaderboard, he's not qualified based on innings. After tonight, I'm guessing he will be, but coming into the night, just 44 innings pitched compared to all these others that we mentioned, other than Mason Miller, of course, all above 50 and some above 60 innings pitched. So I do think that factors in a little bit if these guys are close, but you went with Cristopher Sánchez, who I believe was both of ours preseason NL Cy Young pick. I'd have to go back, but I'm pretty sure we both took him. But as of now, I'm taking the Miz. We mentioned all the stats before. I mean, one I didn't say, 28.3% swing and miss in the zone, best in the bigs. The fact that he can get that much swing and miss in the zone, not the chase, like, is unreal. Just to kind of put a bow on this is what makes this a fantastic race. If you look at the number one spot for a bunch of different metrics, from traditional to advanced, whatever you want to look at, you get different names all over the place out of this group of guys. So if you look at wins, Chris Sale, Paul Skenes, Chase Burns, all tied with 6 at the top. Although Sale got a win tonight, so maybe he's all alone with 7 now. ERA, I just mentioned Ohtani was at 0.82, but if you only look at qualified pitchers, it would be Cristopher Sánchez, 1.82. You want to look at expected ERA, it's going to give you Paul Skenes, 2.08, leading the way. You want to look at xFIP, it's the Miz, 2.25. K percentage, it's the Miz, 39.3%. Ridiculous, almost 40% rate. He's pretty well above everybody. Walk percentage, you want to look at that as your metric. Skenes is the best, 3.8%. K minus walk percentage, that's the Miz still, because that K percentage is so damn high. Even when you minus the walk percentage, 31.3% leading the way. If you want to look at whip, it's Skenes again, 0.71. Quality starts, 9. I believe it's Chris Sale right there. So the next best from that is this group would be 7. So Chris Sale has you there. So that's why it's a difficult vote as of now. And like I said, I hope it stays that way so we can see a crazy Cy Young vote at the end of the season.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, we don't know if there's other names that are going to pop up through. As you mentioned, Chris Sale, we did not talk about as much. You mentioned him by name, but can't forget that he's hanging around there as well. One of the big reasons that the Braves are where they're at. But let's head into the meat of the order and talk about the other stuff happening with, ironically, the Braves and another former Cy Young winner coming back.
Meat of the order.
All right, here we are in the meat of the order. And I mentioned before the Atlanta Braves. So we saw the return of Ronald Acuña Jr., and we're going to be getting Gerrit Cole taking the mound on Friday. So 2 days from when we're recording here. So starting with Acuña, activated from the 10-day injury list on Monday after he had been sidelined since early May with that strained hamstring. Walt Weiss indicated that the Braves could potentially wait until the weekend before activating, but instead we saw him coming back. Not in the lineup on Monday in the series opener, but officially returned to the lineup the following night, immediately contributed, which was nice to see from him on his end. 1 for 4 with 2 walks, 3 runs scored. So he's on the bases, leading off, serving as the DH. Dubon was playing left field during the win. So seeing Acuña back, and hopefully he can stay healthy, it seemed like he had a little bit more jump in his step than we saw, because it felt like he was battling through that hamstring thing for a little bit before they ultimately put him on the IL.
Yeah, and hamstrings are annoying. Like, they tend to come back if you're not careful. And with a guy like Acuña, who's had so many leg injuries at this point, and more than likely, this is not the last issue we're going to see with his legs at some point. So they're going to have to play it safe. And the Braves do have the luxury of having a very early, very big lead in the division, playing unbelievable baseball, maybe better than anyone else in Major League Baseball. The reason there's not much to bite into yet because he just got back. But I do think their success or lack of success with him will be something to watch, because this is kind of a story with Acuña that maybe isn't talked about as much. And I'm surprised, because this is the kind of story the media loves to kind of get into. And if it was in New York or Boston, or LA, we might be hearing it a little more. So he went on the IL on May 3rd. The Braves went 8-6 without him, like nothing crazy, but it feels like they were just winning every game for the last month. In a way, this is the perfect time for him to return. They just lost Drake Baldwin. Not that they play the same position, but you lose one superstar to an oblique and you get the other superstar back from the hamstring. Not bad if you're a Braves fan. Okay, it makes it a little easier to lose another guy. But here's what I was trying to refer to before. Let's remember the Braves won that World Series a few years back with Acuña being out. So couldn't you just see if all of a sudden they start to struggle, which, they won 9-1 tonight. So then not as of now, but if they go on a 2-week skid where, they go 2-8 or something like that, you can see some talking heads probably mention like maybe the Braves are better without Ronald Acuña for one reason or the other. I don't think you and I sitting here believe that, but I think it's interesting to watch, because if that coincides with each other, it's going to become a conversation.
We saw a similar conversation here in New York on sports radio. And again, they're looking for things to talk about when the Knicks were off for a week after Mother's Day. But when the Mets are winning 2 out of 3 against the Yankees and Lindor's not there, everyone's like, "Are the Mets better without Lindor?" And we all believe that
Exactly.
Lindor, Acuna, a superstar makes the team better. But at the same time, those things do kind of, and there's a little bit more history of the Atlanta thing. Let's be clear about that. As you mentioned, the World Series win without him in the lineup, that's a big precursor to. And don't forget the stuff that's happened in the locker room, the things behind the scenes with media. Like there's stuff that kind of you dig deep into the Acuna piece that you can really make a story out of something if you really wanted to. But let's move ahead here with the New York Yankees. And I mentioned Gerrit Cole taking the mound, making his season debut against the Tampa Bay Rays. A big game, big series for the Yankees against the Tampa Bay Rays, who have been playing unbelievable baseball. For Gerrit Cole, it's been a little bit going. Not started a Major League Baseball game since Game 5 of the 2024 World Series, undergoing Tommy John surgery back in March 2025. He's pitching 6 minor league rehab games during the recovery process. In the latest one, we saw him throw 5 1/3 while allowing just 1 run. His fastest pitch got up to 99.6. A lot of stories about him, about his weight being a little bit of a story here in New York that has the dad bod. And we had Carton on WFN asking Aaron Boone about it. He laughed about it. And again, he's got to get into game condition again. He hasn't pitched, as we mentioned. Let's not forget October 2024. That's a long time ago that he hasn't been on the mound. As far as like the housekeeping goes, Elmer Rodriguez was originally set to start Friday. They sent him back down to AAA riding the bus. But for Cole, I mean, this is a big deal for the Yanks. I understand losing 2 out of 3 right now. They're playing good baseball against the Blue Jays. The bullpen is a big question mark. But for Cole, he's a guy who is, whether you believe he is the ace still or not, that crown is still kind of on his head until proven otherwise. He's going to come back with some competition. And is it Cam Schlittler's team? That's good questions to have right now. Is Schlittler going to be the ace? Is it Cole? Either way, this comes shortly after Max Fried landed on the 15-day IL, which is another big piece, the bruise in the left elbow. So Cole in, Fried out. The Yankees got to figure out the bullpen, but getting Cole back, this was part of the plan. And now hopefully he can kind of be the Gerrit Cole we've all remembered him as a former Cy Young winner.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it. This is another example. We just mentioned Ronald Acuña coming back right after Drake Baldwin goes down. This is another great example of great timing, right? Max Fried goes down, like you said. Gerrit Cole's coming back. There's starting to be this buildup of more and more talk. I mean, you were ahead of it because you started talking about it last week on our last episode of the Yankees being unable to beat teams over 500. That is starting to get a little louder now. So no better time to get a star pitcher like this, like Gerrit Cole back. Yankee fans are going to be pumped to see him. I would only say this, like, don't be surprised. I know he looked pretty good in the minor league, the rehab games, right? Getting up to 99, like you said. Don't be surprised if it takes him some time to look like the old Gerrit Cole. Okay, you got to think about like Sandy Alcantara last year, how he'd show flashes of the old Sandy, and then all of a sudden he was getting walloped. And like, even if the velocity's there, that doesn't mean all the movement and everything like that, the location. Sometimes after Tommy John, it takes these guys, even the veterans, a little bit longer to get the full package back. So hopefully Yankee fans are as patient as they can be with him. With that being said, I wouldn't be shocked if he comes out and lights it up, because I do think he is a guy with that type of adrenaline where he's going to feed off of it. I wouldn't worry about the weight thing too much, like the little belly. Like, has Gerrit Cole ever been, some guy pictured with a 6-pack? Not in my mind. Like, you're a pitcher. Like, I don't think it's a big deal. New York did this with Juan Soto in his introductory press conference with the Mets, like saying they thought they saw a belly on him. And like, the story goes away if he performs. So if I'm a Yankee fan, I'm not particularly concerned that he doesn't have a super like flat washboard stomach. I think he'll be okay.
Yeah, again, and it speaks to just CC Sabathia, I think, over. He was a better pitcher when he was overweight. Like, it's not that. Yeah. It's not like Cole is the extreme example like CC was, but for people making a big deal, again, this is just a high bar that New York media has, that this wouldn't be a story in a smaller market. And it's part of just being a New York Yankee or being a New York Met or just playing in this market that people are making a story. And he gets paid a lot of money. That's why, they want him there. He hasn't pitched for a full season. The expectation is to come out and be the ace. I understand that maybe Schlittler, as I mentioned, it's his team as far as rotation wise, but make no mistake about it. The money that Cole's being paid, there's expectation from the front office and the Yankee fan base for him to come out and be the guy. I understand there's going to be growing pains. There's going to be the pitch count piece, the recovery, the velocity, all that. And the command has all improved in the 6 rehab starts. But the expectation is when Gerrit Cole takes the mound, you see 4 or 5 on the bump. this dude's got to be performing. And fair or unfair, it's going to be like, you need to be Cy Young at Gerrit Cole immediately. And that might not be, that's going to leave a lot of disappointed people, as you mentioned, because there's going to be a buildup. And it does work though. I mean, Zach Wheeler, we're seeing him return back to form. It's not the same injury. It's not the same exact scenario, but seeing Wheeler return to form when everyone thought maybe we saw the best of Wheeler in the past, these guys are gamers, and there's a reason why they're at the top of the game for as long as they are. And Gerrit Cole might have to adjust who he is, but this is still Gerrit Cole, 2023 American Cy Young Award winner, a guy who just dominated the postseason with the Houston Astros. He can go out there and pitch. It's about being there and staying healthy.
Yeah, and the dream as of now for a Yankee fan is, when September rolls around or something along those lines, if you could roll out there Cam Schlittler, Max Fried, Gerrit Cole, Will Warren, Carlos Rodon, like, you can feel really, really good heading towards the postseason. That doesn't happen often, of a team having all their guys there toward the end of the season, but maybe the timing works out for them, and that's the picture you get. And if it is, you're going to feel really good about your chances.
Well, Bednar can't blow a save if he never gets in the game and the pitchers don't allow him to, right?
Oh, maybe the catcher behind the plate shouldn't be calling a curveball on pitch number 1 there. That seemed like Taylor was sitting on it. There's been some complaints about not just the bullpen, but some of the pitches being called and the relationship between pitcher and catcher, and something to watch, I guess.
Did you hear the conversation about Bednar not dressed appropriately for the game? Because it was hot. You were at the game, and he was wearing long sleeves, and he seemed like he was already worn down a little bit. Maybe that plays a part into him just wanting to get a ball over the plate, and he took for granted it's Tyrone Taylor, a light-hitting 4th outfielder. He's like, fuck it, I'll just throw a curveball over the plate, and there it goes.
Who knows? Maybe it is worth. I mean, Taylor hit 2 balls leading up to that really, really hard that same day, and I think both got robbed or something like that, if I remember correctly. So, like, he was feeling good that day, and he admitted, like, that is the pitch he was looking for when he went up there. So sometimes you just guess right, and you get the pitch. And not only was it a curveball that he was looking for, it was a hanging curveball right over the center of the plate. Like, whether you're a light hitter or not, you're a major league hitter, if you're looking for that pitch and you get it and it's a hanger right in the middle, a lot of guys are going to crush that. It's just the question is, keep it fair.
Well, let's speak about hitters crushing balls, and it starts with the South Side of Chicago and the nation's capital of DC, and two teams we didn't think we'd be talking about emerging as 2 of baseball's most productive offenses, but even though their path's a little bit different getting there, we're going to talk about them. So let's start with the White Sox here. You think about the names. We have to put the window of the last 30 days to really put in perspective what the White Sox have done, because over the course of the season, you look at the full season thus far, they're not in the top ranks, but over the last 30 days, the White Sox have been very impressive. They rank first in MLB and OPS, 823. They rank first in home runs with 48, RBIs with 140, on base percentage 350, slugging percentage, while ranking second in batting average with a 261 batting average. Through 46 games, they own a 738 OPS, 66 home runs, 211 runs scored after the beginning of the season, with a paltry 192 batting average and 567 OPS for their first 15 games. And you can kind of look at just the growth over the first 20 games, as I mentioned, how bad they were in the beginning of the season. The OPS climbed to 626. By game 25, it reached 702. You got to start this conversation with Murakami. First major national storyline because of the profile and production. We talked about him here on this show. How can he adjust to the game? He owns a 155 WRC plus, an exit velocity of 95.1 on average, 22.7 barrel rate, while leading the American League with 17 home runs. The White Sox offense has become dangerous, and it's more than just Murakami, though. You can talk about Colson Montgomery. We're going to talk a lot about Miguel Vargas because he's been a player that's just been unbelievable. The White Sox are the only team in baseball with 3 players at double-digit home runs right now, all 27 years or younger. So Montgomery also leads the team in WAR at 2.1 while adding defensive value. We'll get into Vargas after this, but just your thoughts initially on really those 3 guys and other guys contributing, whether it's Chase Meadroth or other people in this lineup that are just shockingly productive.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's exactly what my headline is here, kind of writing notes before the show. Montgomery, Murakami, and Miguel Vargas look like a legitimate 3-headed monster when they're swinging it this well. Listen, the strikeouts are definitely high for Montgomery and Murakami. I think that's pretty well known. Vargas, not a super high K percentage guy. That's nice that one of them is going to put the ball in play a little more often, not swing and miss as much. But even so, the reward, right? That risk reward issue with the strikeout, the swing and miss, but the big swings, the reward is big with these guys, clearly. Montgomery and Murakami hitting the ball out of the ballpark frequently. If I'm poking holes in it, I know you mentioned the last month. Just as a season as a whole, I know they got off to a bad start, but third worst strikeout percentage as far as teams go, team strikeout percentage. They're right there with the Angels, the Rockies, the Orioles, not the company you want to have. So that gives me a little pause before I get too excited about this offense. Because if the swing and miss stays and those rewards are not coming as often of the big home runs, the result changes a little bit. So I would give some caution to people that are completely putting both feet in the pool of the Chicago White Sox offense, that this is a recipe for having some struggles over the course of a week or two, where it can look very frustrating, look a little more like the beginning of the season did. And certainly then maybe the hot streaks come back. But you can't deny, like, it's not a super small sample size. You just said it. 30 days, they have looked like one of, if not the best offense in Major League Baseball. And that's pretty shocking.
So let's talk about Miguel Vargas for a second. I think famously we think of the White Sox historically bad season when Michael Kopech was traded to the Dodgers. Miguel Vargas was on the other side of it, going from what would eventually be a World Series winning team to sitting in a dugout very lonely in a White Sox uniform. And I just think about Miguel Vargas, and he could have just kind of sold it off and just said, you know what, I'm not going to play. He has improved himself. And I think he represents one of the more significant individual developments inside this lineup transformation as part of this three-headed monster, as you aptly named it. He struggled badly following that trade, and he just improved modestly in 2025. I think it's clear to say at this point, in the beginning of the year, he's broken out offensively in the season of 2026 through 46 games. The slash line's 241, 366, 494 with a 1.7 WAR. Over the past 30 days, he ranks second among all MLB position players in WAR, while hitting 309 with 9 home runs in 26 games and recording as many walks as strikeouts. And you kind of look at the underlying profile of Miguel Vargas and his Baseball Savant page, just the improvement of bat speed from 2024 went from 69.8 miles per hour to 73.7 miles per hour. That's just bat speed over the course of 2 years. So the additional bat speed also kind of alters the hard hit rate. In 2024 was 26.3%. Now in 2026, it's 44.4%. Expected slugging does also improve with the bat speed. 2024 is 301. This year it's 546 thus far. So he also is improving the plate discipline, the contact percentage. You go through it, he's improving himself all throughout. And Ben Clemens dropped a good article on Fangraphs talking about he's been replaced completely by a replicant, essentially saying that his body has been replaced by an alien. And then this dude is not actually Miguel Vargas. Someone else is in his body playing baseball. And you can kind of just look at the offense and what he's been able to do. He turned everything around, and maybe it's just kind of adjustment. Maybe it's just playing loose with the Chicago White Sox, or just maybe give credit to the Chicago White Sox coaching staff. Something has changed, and he's been a big part of everything they're doing. And I don't think anyone looked at this rebuild of what it was, a full teardown, if you will, that Miguel Vargas would be part of, as you again called it, a three-headed monster. I don't think anyone identified that he'd be a guy you're like, he's one of the hitters we're scared of when facing the White Sox. And right now, that's kind of what happens in baseball, though. You have a guy that you trade for, and Miguel Vargas was obviously sought after. He was a guy they got in that Michael Kopech trade, as I mentioned. But I don't think anyone expected him to be that guy. Same thing with Colson Montgomery. Kudos to the scouting of the Chicago White Sox by finding these guys. And again, we don't want to get too over the moon and hyperbolic about these players, but just to see where they were 2 years ago, and now to see where the White Sox are contributing offensively and playing meaningful baseball. Let's not forget they play the Cubs this weekend as well and having a good series against them. It's some really fun stuff happening over there on the South side.
No doubt. And like you said, the Baseball Savant page is super encouraging, because you can really kind of dive in and see if you actually believe in some of these changes, as far as, all right, a player is suddenly having a really good year that we didn't expect. And sometimes you look at the page and be like, yeah, this is not going to continue. But a few things that stand out, and you mentioned a lot of them, but the things that I kind of most buy into, he's swinging less often by 3.4%, just overall swinging. So being a little more choosy, right? He's chasing a lot less, 4.2% less. So that's huge, right? Trying to kind of stay in the zone more. And then the other thing I like, first pitch swing percentage. This doesn't work for every player, and I think we've talked about this the other way. But for him, he is swinging 5.8% more often at the first pitch, trying to take advantage of maybe those get me over fastballs, get me ahead. and trying to crush some of them. And again, this does not always work. Sometimes it'll end up getting you behind in the count if you swing and miss, and maybe swing at one that you shouldn't have swung at and being too aggressive on that first pitch. But the mix of things he's changed, where overall he's being more patient and more selective, but on that first pitch he's being a little more aggressive. I do like that mix, and hopefully doesn't fall into old habits of chasing a little more. But you got to like what you see from Vargas, and I think, like I said before, you have Murakami and Montgomery of similar profiles of great power, but also a lot of swing and miss. It is really good for the White Sox to add a guy like Miguel Vargas at the top of his game who has less swing and miss, a little bit of a different hitter, but add him on with those other two. It's working for them right now, and we'll see if they can keep it going. I mean, very winnable division. Let's just say that.
So let's head out to the nation's capital right here, and we're going to add a little bit more to the numbers because the Nationals put up some more runs on the board tonight. Through 49 games, the Nationals lead MLB with 271 runs scored despite sitting below 500. Their run differentials in the negative as well. And the pitching staff and defense have allowed a league worst. At this point, we got to look at the league. I had 284 runs. I'm not sure how many runs they gave up tonight. So add on that 288. I think they gave up 4 runs tonight. So just do the math on that. Either way, the offense itself grades extremely well. 5th in OPS, 6th in WRC+, 7th in expected WOBA. They're averaging around 5.46 runs per game, a pace that would surpass both the 2019 World Series winning Nationals team and the 1994 Expos for the highest scoring rate in franchise history. You can also talk about the 9th season in franchise history where the Expos and Nationals scored at least 262 runs through any 48-game stretch. And you can probably point to guys like C.J. Abrams, James Wood, both acquired in that Juan Soto trade. So again, that thing they did hit on that point as well. Wood leads MLB in runs scored, while Abrams ranks 3rd in RBIs, both rank him on the top 20 qualified hitters in OPS and WRC+. I mean, again, looking at them, we talked about them last year. I think there's some people that were very high on this offense that they'd be able to contribute, but our concern was the pitching, and it still rears its head this year because as good as they are offensively, they're that bad on the other side of the ball. But again, they're fun to watch here. And there's other names outside of the ones you're thinking of. It's C.J. Abrams, as I mentioned, with James Wood. Let's talk about Dalen Lyle, 112 WRC+. He has power against right-handed pitching. Joey Weimer, we talked about the beginning of the year, one of those fantasy guys. You're like, oh, should I pick him up? Is he someone who's going to be there? He kind of cruised off into the bottom, but he has 164 WRC+, over 83 plate appearances before being optioned. Curtis Mead owns 133 WRC+ with a 213 isolated power and more walks and strikeouts for 114 plate appearances. There's names on this lineup that you're like, I wouldn't be able to pick them out of a full picture here of who's a Major League Baseball player, but they're doing things that are just unbelievable and they're scoring runs at a clip. So if they can even improve this pitching incrementally, this is a really fun offense to really get behind.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched them firsthand as a Met fan. This 4-game set, Mets were able to get the first one, and then the second one, and this is a perfect example of what you're talking about with the offense. The second one, so the Mets had a lot of momentum after the Subway Series, right? At the big walk-off comeback win against the Yankees in the 3rd game of that series. They go out and they win the first game against the Nationals. Game 2 yesterday against the Nationals, they take a 5-0 early lead, and you got Nolan McLean on the mound. You're like, oh man, we're winning again, like rolling. All of a sudden, James Wood hits a inside the park grand slam. Nick Morabito makes a great effort, can't get it. Tyrone Taylor didn't figure out where the ball was after it bounced off the wall. James Wood comes all the way home. And after that, they just kept on pouring it on. Mets defensively a little shaky. So they can score runs in bunches, and they did it again to the Mets tonight in a different fashion. They just came out and got ahead early, and the Mets kind of tried to catch. Every time they were starting to catch up, the Nationals would add more runs. So I'm seeing it firsthand here. Whether I think they can sustain it, that's a different question. I don't necessarily, but again, this is a pretty big sample size at this point. If they've been doing this all year, like you said, James Wood, C.J. Abrams, very legitimate 1-2 punch. I had written down here, I think Dalen Lyle is a nice Robin to the double Batman, if you will, of the Abrams and Wood. As far as sustaining it through the year goes, I don't see it. I will say, like, Dylan Cruz just got called back up. We talked about his demotion a month or so ago. There was a very interesting topic. He's made it back up here. If he can kind of find that potential and be another piece for them, maybe I buy into this more. Maybe he ends up being an X factor for them. But right now, I'm not buying in. I will say, like, they're doing things that I like that are I think they help them get past their shortcomings and maybe their lack of depth. We're 6th in the major leagues in stolen bases. So they're stealing, they're using their legs. 9th in on base percentage, getting on base, part of the, big part of the problem there. Surprisingly, 6th in the league in home runs. That's the number I would expect to trail off a little bit if you're asking me. But there's not a lot I can sit here and just deny. This has happened. They've been very, very good. I think the question is long term, do we think they're staying here? And the other question I would have is when July comes around, if they stick around 500, which I believe their win tonight got them back to 500. Excuse me. Do they compete, or do they look in the mirror and say, this is fun, but we still have a long-term picture in mind, so we're going to capitalize on one of these guys having a really good season and move him, like a CJ Abrams, who, let's be honest, has been in trade rumors for probably over a year now. He's been great this year. If they don't see him as part of the long-term solution, like maybe they try to cash that in for something, maybe some pitching pieces. They do have some other young position players that are coming up through the system. I mean, Brady House was up here. They just sent him back down. You got Seaver King and the likes of obviously Eli Willits, who's still super young, but has looked really, really good since playing pro ball. So the Nationals are a very interesting team. I did not expect them to be where they are right now. But here we are. Going forward, I'm very curious what happens in Washington.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, both of these teams, put them in the same bucket. They entered the season with limited national attention. If they had the national attention, it was more like, are they going to be historically bad? At least with the White Sox, that was the conversation. But through the first portion of the season, each of these offenses that produce at the highest level in baseball, even for a short portion of the year, that's something that I don't think anyone had on their bingo card. So we'll see, as you mentioned, really sorting out what's real and what's not. It's going to be the challenging thing for both front offices. And let's not forget, for the Nationals, this is a new regime in town. They got to figure out who is their guys. They have to figure out who do they want there. Is it CJ Abrams, as you mentioned, or are they moving on from him? Are they going to sell him at an all-time high? Maybe they can get a package from one of these contending teams and move on. Are they confident that they have this developmental system where they can take these young hitters, and as you mentioned their names before, that they can develop them and kind of put them in their system where just come up and contribute? As we mentioned with Joey Wiemer, they sent him down yesterday, but he was contributing at a high level. So it's just like, even though he was struggling in bits, like they're confident that, all right, we need this guy to develop in certain things, and he's not getting the ability to fix what was wrong, whether it be the strikeouts. They want him to try it out at AAA. You mentioned Dylan Cruz coming back up. They felt confident, like, hone the craft and get ready for the window, whether that's 2 years from now or not, to legitimately win a World Series. I think they have the bigger picture in mind. But as far as the offense go, you can't ignore like the numbers that they're averaging, comparing them to 1994, the Expos, and the 2019 Nationals offense pace-wise. That's something crazy. And as far as just an optimistic glass half full type of conversation of what does the future hold? If this is what it looks like when they're really at the start of the road, they're hopping on the road right now. And it has to be exciting if they continue on this progression path.
Yeah. And I mean, on the pitching side, I think, the hope is that they can develop some pitching. The problem is I think their two best pitching prospects, both coming back from bigger injuries, Susana and Sakura. But those are exciting guys once they get back in the picture. And then all of a sudden you mix that youth with the offensive youth we have. Again, biggest question in my head is CJ Abrams still a National after the July deadline? We'll see. I'm sure the way he's playing right now, the speed he has, the pop he has, if any contender needs a shortstop or even thinks like, hey, we could pop him at second base or something, they're going to come knocking on that door for sure.
So as far as other teams that are trying to get offense in different ways, you can kind of compare this, a nice segue from the Washington Nationals, who lead MLB with 5.1 base running runs, whether it's Nunez, who has 20 stolen bases, and figuring out a way to generate offense. Another team is the Kansas City Royals. And they were making headlines yesterday because of their base running mistakes. And I think it's a larger conversation I put on the rundown here because they lost 7-1 against Boston. They dropped to 20-29 yesterday, and I believe they were in action today. I think they got the W today. But it was 8 losses.
I think they
lost next. So add on top of that, so 9 losses in 10 games, a fourth consecutive series loss as far as the last series against Boston. And the offense was showing signs of life earlier in May, but the slide has exposed maybe this underlying problem with some of these teams that have really lineups that are struggling. The Royals themselves, we talked about all the offense with the Chicago White Sox and the Nationals. The Royals ranked 27th at MLB in runs scored, with 191 as of yesterday. I didn't include the runs they scored today. Their production with runners in scoring position has been even worse. Kansas City owns a 655 OPS with runners in scoring position, ranking 29th in baseball, alongside a 230 batting average in those situations, which ranks 25th. And I think when we talk about the base running mistakes going forward, and I know they're being dunked on because it's just like simple baseball 101 type of thing. Michael Garcia getting thrown out trying to take second base in the 5th inning, that does hurt. Lane Thomas getting picked off attempting to steal third in the 6th inning, that also hurts. In a 1-run game, both outs were magnified because the Royals went on to, they're not generating enough offense to overcome those lost opportunities. But I think the bigger picture for a team like the Kansas City Royals is understanding why those things are happening. I think internally they understand that they're not a lineup that can consistently string together 3 or 4 quality bats in the end. And I think they don't want to say that out loud, but that's exactly what they are. And the players know that. And I think that's why they're being aggressive. And I think this is a kind of this catch-22. They have to be aggressive to generate offense, and they're stifling some of the offense because they're being aggressive. And Lane Thomas was talking about this in the post game. He's like, I was just trying to get the offense going a little bit. And I think the numbers actually show why the aggression itself isn't really failing. Because like, when you look at what they have to do, they should be getting offense from all the guys there. And of course, you want a more well-rounded team. This profiles for a team that's just, maybe the analytics are showing they should be more aggressive than they actually are. They entered the game with 18 outs made on bases this season, which only trails the Miami Marlins, the Washington Nationals in Detroit, which you don't want to make the outs on the bases. We know that. It's so frustrating to watch as a baseball fan. But I do think the Royals, if you look at them, they're tied for 5th in baseball with 3 base running runs, according to StatCast. The 2 teams ahead of them in base running runs are Washington and Miami. Each also had 21 outs on the bases. So again, it kind of like, as a team that is struggling offensively, you can't blame them for being aggressive. And I understand it gets magnified in a big way when you're losing, and especially in a clip like this. They're trying to force offense into existence. It just looks horrible when you're making these mental mistakes on the bases.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to go. It's like the base running aggression is one of those things where when it works out for you and you take the extra base, you're going to be praised. Like, oh man, look at the aggression, great base running, great IQ. And the second it goes wrong, you're getting torn apart. Like, what are you doing? It is one of those things. Like, when it works out, it looks great, and when it doesn't, you look like an idiot. So, I mean, you painted the picture. It's pretty clear. And like you said, that point you said about the base running runs, like base running runs above average on Fangraphs, they had it at 2. I think you mentioned a slightly different one on Savant, but either metric you look at, like, they're a top 5, top 6 base running team still, even with the mistakes. So, like, this is a part of their game. I mean, you got Bobby Witt Jr., who's probably a big part of that. Great base runner, right? Sprint speed is top of the league. But they have to push the envelope because guys are not performing, right? If you're going to have Salvador Perez and Vinny Pasquantino playing this poorly, both hitting below 200, like, this is the aggressive type of baseball they're going to have to play to try to get over the hump. Still a very winnable division. I know they're sitting there in last with a pretty ugly record, but like, you can't tell me that they have no chance of winning this division. By the way, I should update you. They actually have not quite lost tonight. They're in the bottom of the 9th with a runner on, down 4-3. Michael Wacha was fantastic again. Maybe one of the most underreported stories this year is how good Michael Wacha has been. Like, quality start after quality start after quality start. But as soon as he left the game, the Red Sox hit a 2-run homer off the bullpen to take the lead. So it's kind of how it's gone for the Royals, now trying to scratch across a run in the 9th to get it to extra innings, or maybe even walk it off if they can get 2. But yeah, you need those guys, those veterans that are supposed to help Bobby Witt. And what happened to the fences being moved in, and Vinny Pasquantino is going to hit 40 home runs this year because of it. Salvi looks like time is finally catching up with him to a degree. Carter Jensen's been okay. He's had his moments of, a few days in a row hitting home runs, still a ton of potential there. Jack Caglione, like, he's been better than Pasquantino and Salvi. He hasn't been amazing, but he's been better than those guys. Maikel Garcia overall has been pretty solid. Maybe not fantastic, but solid. But they need more, man. The pitching's been pretty damn good. You got Bobby Witt Jr. being Bobby Witt Jr. You need those other core veteran guys to step up and play better. No one expected both of those guys, Perez and Pasquantino, to be this bad more than a quarter through the season.
I mean, to put a bow on it, the base running mistakes are more a symptom than the cause, in my opinion. And imagine what it would look like. It would be a lot uglier if they were going station to station and just being conservative. Mm-hmm. And the same people that are, on Kansas City media or whoever's talking about the Royals that are saying last night was embarrassing would be the same one saying they're heartless or they don't have any drive. It's just
Exactly.
they have to be the team that generates offense until you get more from Vinny or until you get more from Sal. They have to find a way to create opportunities on bases, and it's going to look ugly sometimes. And that's the growing pains when an offense has a 655 OPS and they're not with runners in scoring position, I should say, and they can't stack anything together. It gets ugly pretty quickly, and you're not able to extend rallies. But you have to put some pressure on there and do things well until the reinforcements come and these guys start hitting. Like you said, when the fences come in or the weather gets hotter, I don't know what it's going to take, but it doesn't make these mistakes harmless. And I know it's frustrating if you're a Kansas City Royals fan listening to this. I can't, as a baseball fan, watching my team, the New York Yankees, if they make mistakes on the bases and they run themselves out of innings, it pisses me off. But again, you have to understand the context. These things are not the same. The Royals right now are in dead last in a lot of the offensive categories, and you have to find a way to generate runs. It's just the status of where they are right now.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if Salvi and Vinny can hit a little more, they can be a little less aggressive. Like you said, I think that you put it well. It's more of a symptom of some bigger sickness that they have to figure out. And I thought they were going to be a better offensive team this year, to be honest. And part of that was, thinking Salvi would be Salvi. Pasquantino coming off the WBC where he was huge. I thought maybe he'd ride that momentum in. Didn't happen. And I thought Caglione, maybe we'd see that 30 to 40 home run power. But we've seen the power. He's one of those guys right now. When he hits one, it's so impressive that you think he's automatically going to be this unbelievable power hitter, easy 40 home runs. But that hasn't been the story yet. When he hits them, they're gargantuan. But when, how often he's hitting them, I think has been a little less frequent than Royals fans had hoped for.
And with Vinny, they dropped him down to 7th in the order, his lowest lineup of the season yesterday. So they got to figure it out over there in Kansas City. But again, like you just said, the division's very winnable. And if you get hot for a stretch of the month, you can figure it out. But let's head into What's the Word and talk about other news around baseball.
What's the word?
Okay, what's the word here? We got 3 topics here. And first, we're going to talk about Royce Lewis being sent to AAA. And if you missed it, he was optioned AAA St. Paul. And for the Twins right now, he's hitting just 163 this season, 3 home runs, 17 hits across 104 at bats. And this is the first demotion of his career. And they're not happy with him. And my word for this is significant. As I mentioned before, it's significant because it directly acknowledges how difficult this has been for him. And as a former top pick for the organization, this is a guy who carries major expectations every time he comes to the plate, and the production this season has not matched those expectations. And the GM was pretty critical of him in the media talking about it. So something to watch here. And right now, the Twins, you talk about this, they're 23-27, only 1.5 games out of an American a wild card spot. They're a team that's kind of in the mix, and they're moving him from the roster entirely right now to figure it out. Kind of speaks volumes very, very loudly.
Yeah, my word here is bust adjacent. Okay, because I'm stopping a little short, pumping the brakes before just calling him a complete bust, because there's been too many times he has shown significant flashes of being a potential star where he'll just go on a home run barrage. It hasn't been recently, but not too long ago, we'd see those flashes. Problem is he'd show those flashes, then he'd get hurt and he'd be on the IL, and he'd come back and he'd get hurt again. So I don't think he's been a complete bust, but if we're being honest, it's starting to get close. He was drafted number 1 overall back in 2017. It's been 9 years since he was drafted, which is crazy. I don't feel like he's been around that long, but 9 years. Typically, like I said, it's been injuries stalling his success, but you have to start to wonder if all those injuries, one on top of the next, have sapped some of the natural talent, because we know he has it. But when you're constantly in the lineup, then you're rehabbing, then you're resting, then you're back in the lineup, and then you're doing it. It's a lot of back and forth. It's got to take a physical and a mental toll. He was hitting 163. The triple slash line was 163, 261, 279 in the year. Ugly. I looked back at Dan O'Dowd's breakdown of him from draft night back in 2017. It's always interesting to go back and look at those. So when he went number 1 overall, they listed his role as potential all-star, which I think, again, if you've seen those flashes, you could buy into that. And his comp was George Springer, which is an interesting comp, because George Springer has had his own injury battles over the years, kind of because he throws his body all over the place. But George Springer has also had massive success, tons of postseason runs, World Series. Last year, even just that like a revival season for him out of nowhere, where he was legitimately one of the best hitters in the league the entire year. The amazing ALCS moment. So unfortunately, could I see that comp like skill, like what their skill set is for sure, but it has turned out not to be a good one if you put those careers side by side.
And for the Twins, Jeremy Zoll, as I mentioned, the GM over there, he had said, and I thought it was very telling. He said this was not something they were hoping to have to do. And it's not like they're like made the excuse for him, like, all right, well, this is just an opportunity for the organization to reset. And like, no, they like were pretty critical of the way he's playing. So it seems like they're just fed up with the lack of results. But let's move ahead here with some of the fans. And we have the Tarps off in MLB Stadium. So it's become one of the strangest and most entertaining fan movements in baseball right now. Tuesday night in St. Louis might have officially pushed it into the full national phenomenon territory, where Ivan Herrera hit a walk-off 3-run home run in the 10th inning to beat the Pirates. Rounds the bases, Herrera acknowledged the shirtless right field section had been creating a lot of noise all night, ripping his own jersey off, spinning in the celebration after crossing home plate. And I guess that visual basically confirmed what had already been building over the last few weeks. Tarps off is no longer just a random bit that the Cardinals are doing. It seems like now we're having movement spread to the Rays and the Mariners and the Tigers. The Phillies fans even joined in during the rain, if you guys saw that clip. MLB itself has kind of leaned into it. They were kind of joking that Tarps off is sweeping the nation, all that. And again, if you're a college football fan, which I know you are, Devin, Notre Dame fan over there, you can kind of talk about whether it be the Oklahoma State fan. If you remember back in 2025, he reportedly accepted a $10 bet from his sister to stand shirtless in an empty section during the season for the Cowboys. That they were just simply brutal. And they finished 1-11 that year, by the way. And then you also it was more of a college football thing to me. And then you can also talk about like with just football in general, and maybe it's just like a college, maybe like an outdoor hockey thing. But here we are, MLB doing this, and now it seems like the Cards are institutionalizing it. They're trying to emphasize it. A fan base that was largely just dead on its feet, no energy in the ballpark,
Yeah.
like really got them going. And my word is entertaining, by the way.
Yeah, my word is energy. I mean, what the energy that has just suddenly brought to the Cardinals, the ballpark, but also the team, like the clubhouse, they have completely bought in. I am not, obviously well known if you listen to the show. I'm not a Cardinals fan. I'd like to give them grief. In the last year or two, I've made it known that like, oh, the quote unquote best fan in baseball not showing up at the stadium anymore, going through some hard times. First of all, let's say this: the Cardinals are playing great. They sold everybody off, all the vets, and they are seemingly better off for it, playing the best baseball that they have in years, inspired baseball, right there towards the top of the NL Central, right behind the Brewers by, I think, like a half game going into tonight. They are down 7-0 to the Pirates right now, so it hasn't carried over to tonight as we speak. But seeing the players embrace it and seeing Carlos Marmol embrace it, invite some of the guys that started it into the clubhouse, like I've never seen anything like that. Anything. That's like these are not people that like they know, that they're related to, friends, family, like strangers got invited into the clubhouse and they credited them with like helping get energy there. It's pretty damn cool. At first, when the Rays fans started doing it, like the next day, I was like, come on, you can't just take someone else's shtick right away. But now that other teams like fans have done it and it's kind of sweeping all over the place, I'm actually okay with that. If it was just the Cardinals and then the Rays copied them, I don't know. I think that would have been a little lame, but the fact that it's just kind of sweeping the nation for Major League Baseball fans, I love it. It's fun. It reminds me in a different way of like the cup snake that the Chicago fans do. And it's always fun to kind of put the camera over there for a minute and see how well that's doing. The Tarps off thing, I will say there will never be anything like the first night it happened, where it just kept on growing and it became like a whole section, and they were documenting it throughout the night. And every time they put the camera back on it, there was more and more people. It's fun. But yeah, energy is the word here. Great energy for St. Louis and maybe the other teams as well.
Have you ever been in a stadium/ballpark with no shirt on, Devin?
I do not think I've ever ripped the shirt off during a game, but
I have.
I thought about doing the pod. I thought about doing the pod tonight shirtless, just to join the Tarps off crew. Just sit here waving it the entire time we talk, but just thought it might hurt the arm a little bit.
Tasteful nipple over the green glow, right?
Just like half of it. Yeah, half of it showing.
Yeah, I did. I was at the PNC Park with Travis, and we were walking around. It was hot as hell that day, and I had drank a lot of beers. And I just popped it off. We were just out there. It's like, I'm catching a tan out here. I just took the shirt off, eating peanuts. And he's like, there's a photo of me where I got peanut shells in my chest hair. So that's, that's the byproduct of
classy. That's the definition of class right there. Beautiful.
And there's also a photo of me at the 2002 SummerSlam at Nassau Coliseum where my dad, my good friend Mike, and his dad, we wrote RVD on our chest, and we're in we were in the Nassau Coliseum shirts off for the whole night, which again is just crazy to me because like I love Rob Van Dam, ECW kid growing up, absolutely love him. But it was the return of HBK. Like, how do we not go HBK exclamation point on there? Just was a bizarre mental thing at 2002, however old I was. But either way, there's a photo exists. I could send it to you guys if you want it, but RVD on my chest.
Yeah, we got to document that one.
Tarps off, baby.
Tarps off.
All right, last what's the word here? And it's your New York Mets, and they give away Gary Carter's number for the night. So if you guys missed it, Nick Morabito's promotion should have been pretty straightforward, but the conversation, especially around New York, immediately became around Gary Carter and his number 8. So he was called up on Tuesday, initially issued number 8, a number, of course, the Mets have rarely used since Carter last wore it. Only 3 players have worn it after Carter. Desi Relaford was the last one back in 01, if I have my numbers correct. And the backlash was very quick. Obviously, the 40th anniversary season of the 1986 Mets, that kind of adds some salt to the wound here. Longtime broadcaster that we know and love, Howie Rose. He criticized the move publicly, just talked about it. Obviously, part of the bigger conversation is that Gary Carter's number should just be retired.
Right.
It's not even just like they shouldn't give it away. It should just be retired. And the situation has kind of become awkward. They gave Morabito 55, understanding was wrong. My word for this is embarrassing. Because who made this decision? Like, I know some of the conversation that we've seen in our group chat, and people are like, it probably was just some employee that didn't understand the significance. That kind of makes it worse for me. That this is the person that no one has, and the excuse was they were on the road. That they just gave the number. Like it just is messy for me. It's embarrassing. This is a historic player, part of 2 World Series. All right, so 86. You only have 2 World Series. He's part of 86. Probably the best team in Mets history, a guy that was a big part of what they did. They've retired all these numbers since Steve Cohen, aggressively expanding. David Wright, Darryl Strawberry, Dwight Gooden, Keith Hernandez, Jerry Kuzman, Carlos Beltran's going to be joining later this year. How is Gary Carter not in the honor circle right now? They've treated that number differently for 25 years. They weren't giving the number. The kid didn't know. I'm not blaming the kid. He did make a mistake playing the game. That's a whole other story, but I don't know, dude. It just was embarrassing to me. Like, treat your legendary players with more respect.
Yeah, so I think I'm probably in the minority here. I don't think this is a huge deal at all, and I'll tell you why. So my word, first of all, is forgiveness. They fixed it. They weren't stubborn about it. They fixed it right away. Right, he had it the one day. I think the bigger story, like you said, is like, why is his number not retired yet? Like, why are we doing Carlos? I love Carlos Beltran, David Wright, all those guys, but like, why are we doing the guys from the 2000s before a guy from 86? Because here's the problem, and here's why I think it's easy to forgive. Carter's number's not retired, and there's plenty of other examples. Like, the Mets are not I know they're retiring lots of numbers now, but for a long time, the Mets were like opposite of the Yankees. The Yankees would retire the number of the clubhouse attendant, like on a day-to-day basis. Let's be honest, like, they're going to run out of numbers. Like, anybody who was in any significant game, they retire their number. The Mets are getting to the point where I like Cohen has fixed a lot of ills that, the Wilpons and those guys did. Like, actually not, the Wilpons would just not acknowledge the Mets history, and Cohen's doing a very good job of that. But there are plenty of other examples of historic Mets numbers being worn by other players before the number was retired. So Doc Gooden's number 16 recently retired by the Mets, but before it was worn by Hideo Nomo, Derek Bell, David Cohn, Paul LaDuca, Angel Pagan, Rob Johnson, Rick Ankiel, Daisuke Matsuzaka, Dilson Herrera, Danny Muno, Alejandro De Aza, Austin Jackson, Kevin Kazmarski, Jake Marisnik, and Travis Jankowski. All those guys wore it after him, like deep into the 2020s before it was retired. I didn't hear a ton about it back then. Maybe it's because Doc has a different history. I don't know. Well, let's go to Keith Hernandez. Who is more beloved than Keith Hernandez amongst Mets fans as far as a former player? Number 17. Before his number was retired recently, all the following guys wore number 17. There you go. You named one. Yes, Tatis Sr. is one of them. Jeff McKnight in 1994, Brett Saberhagen, Brent Main, Luis Lopez, Mike Bordick, Kevin Appier, Satoru Komiyama, Jason Anderson, Graham Lloyd, Wilson Delgado, Daesung Koo, Jose Lima, David Newhan, and like you said, Fernando Tatis Sr. for 3 years, by the way, 2008 to 2010. So I am not outraged by this at all. I think it's because the new era of the Mets ownership has acknowledged the history more, that people got really, really sensitive to this. I don't know. I guess they made a little bit of a mistake, but retire the number if you don't want anybody wearing it.
Right.
That's what I would say. So I completely forgive it because the number is not retired. So I don't know what that's all about. Like, don't pseudo retire it. Either retire it or don't. And if it's not retired, people can wear it unless you know the retirement's coming up.
No, I mean, correct. And I think that's a fair point, but it was off limits for 25 years. So like they clearly were unofficially retiring it. And it was a foregone thing that all these players had come up and no one was given 8. I feel like that was an exception since 2001. Like they just didn't give out 8. And I think even the Wilpons didn't do it. Gary Carter was just unofficially retired. I remember this was with the Yankees as well. And so it's not like the Mets are the only franchise that have done this. I think the thing that was embarrassing to me is that there was no connection. It was like, oh, we gave out 8, but it's like, oh, we didn't realize the fans were clamoring for it. They like kind of blamed on the clubhouse attendant that gave it out. That was kind of like the MO that was kind of put out there. I remember LaTroy Hawkins was given 21 not too long after Paul O'Neill retired. And I remember Yankee fans were like, fuck that, dude. He's not wearing 21. So I think this kind of fits both. I think the unawareness is what bothered me as much, because I think there was like an unawareness that he shouldn't have been wearing. Like, oh, we forgot we weren't supposed to give it out. It just one hand not talking to the other. Respect Gary Carter, you know?
Yeah, it's strange because on one hand, fixing it quickly was the right thing to do, but it also, in a way, probably made it look worse because it made it look more like a oops, we just missed that, like because they went right to it. But I think, you know, they'll move on. They'll be better about it, and I would be shocked if Gary Carter's number is not the next one retired at this point.
Yeah, it should be retired, and rightfully so. And unfortunately, he's not here to enjoy it, but his family will get to enjoy the day, and he should be memorialized forever at the ballpark. And for Morabito, I mean, it's a spectacular near catch. It turned into the inside the park home run for James Wood after the ball ricocheted off his glove. He responded with an over-the-wall catch in foul territory. So he's the athleticism, part of the youth movement. Crazy catch. So he is certainly going to provide some energy, the same stuff that AJ Ewing has been providing. So it seems like he's part of this like new youth movement, and whether that's the expectation for Mets baseball this year or not, either way, it's fun to see the kids playing.
For sure. And like we mentioned, the Royals having to figure out like a little more offense with the Mets and the injuries they've had, whether it be Francisco Lindor, Luis Robert, some of the other Francisco Alvarez, some of these guys with pop. I like their solution here. Juan Soto's starting to look great again, starting to look real hot, had a couple bombs. But like around the edges, they're kind of putting these speedy, toolsy kind of kids around him that are bringing a lot of energy. And I know it hasn't worked out these last 2 nights, but I like it. Like even in, it sounds weird, but even the losses have been more enjoyable to watch recently than they were in the beginning of the season, where like it was like torture watching the April baseball. So, you know, for them, go out and get tomorrow's game, split the set with the Nats, and keep on moving, try to get back to winning baseball. But I like watching the kids for sure. It's been fun.
Well, let's head into our sub-2 ERA crew and check out who's left on this list.
Sub-2 ERA crew.
All right, so we have the sub-2 ERA crew that Devin has listed for us. And of course, it's an exclusive list, VIP, red carpet, velvet rope, all that stuff. See who's on it.
All right, well, your boy Cam Schlittler leads the list still as he pitches tonight, 6 innings of shutout ball, walking off the mound after the 6th as we speak. He has brought his ERA down to 1.23, matching 0 for 0 with Trey Savage. Fun one, unfortunately, on Prime, but watching it on Prime anyway. 1.23 is the number for Cam Schlittler. Nick Martinez next. Yeah, he's still here, 1.51. Davis Martin still here, 1.61. The prior mentioned Cristopher Sánchez, 1.82. The prior mentioned Chase Burns, 1.83. The Miz, Jacob Misiorowski as well, 1.89. And Chris Sale just joined this group tonight after his start, got his ERA down from 2.01 down to 1.89 tonight. So he finishes that crew. I will say, Kyle Harrison, I don't know if he's a qualified pitcher, but he brought his ERA down to 1.77 tonight. So just a shout out to him. My guess is with the little time he missed, maybe he does not have the innings pitched to be qualified, but he has been lights out recently. So Bryce Elder now on the periphery. He is 2.01. So if you're wondering, where did Elder go? He finally fell out. Yes, but not by much. So maybe he's back next week.
Yeah, Elder had a tough start just his last go around. I have him in my Roto league and kind of blew up my ERA a little bit on his last time out, but he still kind of shows glimpses. And there's a couple guys in that Atlanta staff that are holding it down. Like when Bryce Elder kind of gives up some of the runs, you got Grant Holmes in there, as we mentioned. There's names in there that are kind of figuring it out for the Atlanta Braves. And that kind of indicates what we would label a special season when you get contributors from all over the place doing good things. But let's head into red hot, ice cold and talk about who's hot and who's cold around baseball.
Red hot, ice cold.
All right, Devin, so I'll let you start here. Go with your red hot and ice cold, one or two, or whatever you have for us right here.
So I just brought a hitter for each category tonight. So one hot, one colds. Gavin Sheets is my red hot. Over the last 8 games, batting .500, slugging .1150, 4 home runs, 31% walk rate. So even when he's not hitting, he's getting on base. 366 WRC plus in those 8 games. He's also been clutch, as San Diego Padre fans know. Some big late home runs. 0.59 clutch factor, if you're into that, on Fangraphs, which is best in the MLB over that time span. So Gavin Sheets been a welcome sight for a San Diego offense that is not always doing a whole lot, somehow figuring it out. Facing Shohei Ohtani tonight. We'll have to check what that score is. But shout out to Gavin Sheets for the red hot there. And then ice cold Adolis Garcia. Not so good. Hitting hitting .040 over the last week. 46.7% strikeout rate. He has lost a negative .4 WAR or FWAR this week. Now hitting .211 on the year. Just 4 home runs on the year with that .211 batting average. So I would say not the bounce back that Philly had hoped they were signing Adolis Garcia for. We thought maybe he'd mash in that ballpark. Has not worked out. I wonder how long he actually ends up being in Philly, or if he ends up being like a DFA candidate.
So as far as the Dodgers go, Ohtani's night is done. 5 innings pitched, 3 hits allowed, 2 walks, 4 Ks, and no earned runs. So they're up 3-0 right now in San Diego. So the bullpen's at it for the Dodgers right now. So they're trying to get it done. His ERA, I understand it's not qualified completely, but his ERA is at now 0.73. So we'll wait till he qualifies with the innings pitch, etc. So he's got to be approaching quickly. They got him up to 88 pitches tonight. So, it's one of those things where eventually they're going to maybe stretch him out and let him go further in the game.
Well, he's got a lot of quality starts. Honestly, this is like one of his first games where he didn't go 6. As a fantasy owner of his, again, he doesn't seem to pitch as often as a lot of other guys do, but when he goes out there, it's been 6 innings, between 7 and 10 strikeouts pretty much every time he's been out there.
Is he over 100 pitches most nights? Because he has 88 tonight.
I don't know if he's gotten to 100, but I don't think they've been kids gloving him too much. I think I'll check as you give your red hot ice cold. I'll look it up and we'll update you on his what his high total has been for.
I'm just curious because it seems like he has the velocity out there, and he probably could have went. I'm not sure what the game situation was. Maybe he was in a little bit of trouble, but 3-0. It doesn't seem like the Padres are generating much offense at all. But I'm curious on that. But as far as my red hot ice cold, I have a pitcher as well. JT Ginn has been quietly one of the Athletics' more effective arms. Of course, going to be inflated by the near no-hitter he had. A heartbreaking loss for the Athletics watching Zach Neto walk it off, but he gets the Cowboy complete game. But over the last 14 innings, he's allowed just 2 earned runs, a 1.29 ERA while holding opponents to 13 hits, producing a whip under 1, 0.93, surrendering only 1 home run during that stretch while striking out 11 hitters. And really what's been most impressive about him is the control and traffic management. I mean, it's kind of matters just as much as the ERA, because it's a guy who had a little bit of control issues going into the season. He's not maybe one of the top line arms. A sub-1 whip across 14 innings means that he's limiting base runners. He's not getting himself in trouble. So that's helped him manage things. And he looked pretty impressive on Monday night. I know they lost, but again, he looked great. And again, no hitter going into the ninth inning and winds up getting walked off. I'm pretty crazy.
Yeah, he's been unbelievable. And that's like, we've said that a few times on here. Like if the A's can get something from a pitcher maybe they didn't expect, that's maybe exactly what they need to add to the mix of the other guys they have there with Sevy and Aaron Savale, right? Like they might need a surprise, and he's all of a sudden kind of having a little bit of a coming out party.
So the antithesis of that is Jake Irvin. He's going through one of the roughest stretches of any starter in baseball right now. Over the last 12 innings, he has a 7.5 ERA. The whip is at 1.92, allowing 12 hits, 10 earned runs, 6 walks. Opponents have taken him deep 3 times during this span. And kind of the opposite again, his issue is the walks. Over 12 innings, nearly 2 base runners per inning. He just has traffic all over the place, getting himself in trouble. Beware. Do not stream him if he's in your league. He will blow up your ERA, and some of the streamers have been tough all over the place, but Jake Irvin's a guy who's always tempting because you look at the advanced stuff, like, oh, he's, look at the numbers and look at some of the spin on the ball, and it blows up. And at least the last couple of weeks, the last 2 starts have been pretty ugly.
Yeah, I'd say. Just to update on Shohei and his pitching game logs. So yeah, I mean, they've let him go a little bit. If tonight he exited after 5, you said that's the first time he did not pitch at least 6 innings. He's pitched 6 innings, basically the first 5 starts, and then his last 2 before this, he pitched 7 innings. And as far as pitch totals, his low mark for the year was 87. And twice he's gone over 100, 104 back on April 28th and 105 last time out against San Francisco on May 13th. So yeah, no, when he's out there, they're kind of letting him go on a regular basis as far as pitches thrown and stuff like that. Always around, probably averaging about 90. I'm doing quick math here, but like 93, 94 pitches a game.
I wonder what the discrepancy is when he's hitting and pitching at the same game, because we were talking about that before where they were avoiding that. So maybe that's part of the conversation where those games where they're giving them more leeway to go out. Maybe they just like, all right, we'll give you the 90 pitches when you're hitting, and then we'll let you go as far as you want. If not, that has to be the case. He led off the game with a home run today. So if he can do both and do it really well, dude's a unicorn. I know we talk about athletes and appreciate them in real time. And I've been having this conversation about Wembanyama and what he's been doing in the NBA. You have to kind of appreciate.
What's that score actually?
It's close right now. It was tied last I saw it.
Thunder,
it is right now.
Up by 6.
Yeah, Thunder have the
3
lead.
minutes to go.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to turn that one on
That's
after we're done
series. But just appreciating the greatness when you're watching. It's hard to know, when they say like when you're in the good old days, But
yeah,
for me as a sports fan, I'm really taking stock of the things around me and watching special things. And whether it's a Wembanyama logo 3 hit the other night, or what we're watching with Jalen Brunson locally here, or Shohei Ohtani, even Ovechkin over the course of these how many years, just like appreciating great players when they're doing it instead of reminiscing and waiting too long to appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. It's a good point. Like we are in a great era of some just unbelievable athletes that, like you said, we'll be looking back on one day, telling grandkids about and things like that. Like some of the stuff we're watching right now is all-time kind of stuff.
All right, well, let's come around third here and wrap up the episode, do some shilling, all that good stuff.
Coming around third.
All right, I want to thank Matt again for doing those bumpers. Great stuff here, organizing the episode. As far as coming around third here for me, I'm looking forward to the Rays and Yankees this weekend. I mentioned before Gerrit Cole coming back, but there's so much more to that series, being that the Rays right now are 33-15, Yankees being 3 games back, depending on what happens tonight. Rays are playing great baseball. They're just kind of beating teams in their own way. They have a really big test this weekend against a really good Rays team. There's some other good games happening, but obviously locally, my eyes are on that. We'll see if the Mets can get back off the snide playing the Marlins as well. The Mets have to figure out a way. They're still sitting 7 games under 500. Can they build off the momentum and carry into getting above 500? Juan Soto's getting hot at 2 home runs, I believe, today. So offense is clicking for him, and he hit some home runs. They had a good series against the Yanks as well. But a lot of good baseball. I know the focus is on the NBA playoffs and the NHL playoffs, but, baseball's here waiting for us. The old constant.
Yeah, I mean, the Yanks Rays is certainly one I'll be watching as well. Last time out, those two, I believe the Rays swept the Yanks in a pretty big series that really got the Rays just kind of rolling since then. And again, all that talk about the Yankees not being able to beat teams over 500. Well, go beat the Rays because, one of the best teams in baseball right now. I'm looking at Dodgers, Brewers. Let's be honest, those two teams for a few years now have felt like the class of the National League consistently over and over. Brewers are probably playing the best baseball they have all season. Dodgers will be coming off this rivalry series with the Pods. So that's an interesting one. I think the Dodgers end up missing the Miz, unfortunately. But still, very interesting series. Remember, the Brewers kind of got embarrassed in the playoffs last year by the Dodgers after having such a great season. Just didn't look like they matched up. But in the regular season, it's been a little bit of a different story when they match up. So we'll see if the Brewers can win that series or if the Dodgers establish dominance once again.
So again, make sure you guys follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at Tablesetters Pod. You guys can also check us out on YouTube at Tablesetters Baseball. Give us a like and a subscribe. Leave a comment, send us a message, leave a review. However you support the show, we greatly appreciate that. For all those new followers out there, I know you guys are here for the notables and our Twitter following is growing. If you're here listening, we appreciate that. Stay along for the ride. We're dropping consistent content on a weekly basis about all things baseball. We love baseball here. It's a 12-month a year, 365-day endeavor for us. And we're continuing the drive here, spreading the love and talking about all the great storylines around Major League Baseball.
For sure. Everything you said. Everyone, thanks for tuning in once again here at Tablesetters. We appreciate you, whether it's listening, reposting, leaving us a 5-star review, telling your friends about us. Much appreciation to all you guys.
So we'll be back next week talking all things baseball. And as always, we'll talk to you after a while. Happy baseball, everybody.